budget item that is normally in any other person's budget in terms of expenses. And you'll find that the causes of our health conditions are, if you trace it back, it revolves around money. So how do you ensure that you gain the right financial skills to ensure you're prepared for any eventuality? But of course, amongst all the other reasons that have been highlighted as far as why we all need to have financial skills. And then comes the critical question around what is the best way for you to plan for unexpected expenses. COVID is here with us, and things are happening that you had not anticipated. Life is changing, you're forced to change, or the circumstances are forcing you to change. So how do you plan for unexpected? Now, before you could say, you know, I'll buy a lottery ticket or I'll gamble myself on spot pesa every weekend, and one day I'll hit the mega jackpot. Or you could, you know, have friends who will lend you money, which is something that I don't think those type of friends have become very few in this environment, and hopefully they will be extinct after this pandemic, because nobody has that money to lend to anybody else. So everybody's trying to, you know, keep their cash flows tight so that they can survive through this COVID. And then of course there's do you plan for unexpected expenses through setting money aside in an emergency savings fund? We'll talk a little bit about it as we go by. So in terms of budgeting, what are the key things we look at? Of course, there are three parts of a budget. There's the income bit, there's the expenses bit, and there's the difference, which is what you now call the surplus or the deficit. And then how do you track how you spend your money? So the first thing is when you go out shopping, when you go buying stuff out there, keep the receipt, because in the evening you'll be able to book that particular record, or record your expenses in a notebook that enables you to know, you know today you went and spent 500 shillings. Now, I tend to tell a lot of people about this issue of record keeping, and they'll tell you, no, I always know, you know, when my money comes, I spend it like this, and at the end of the month, I know I should only remain with this. Now, that is conceptual, but when you start writing down a lot of things, you start recording you start discovering what you call patterns in terms of your spend. You'll start seeing things that you've been spending on, but if you dig deeper, they actually you can live without. And we'll go and learn about it as we go by. Now, review your bank and credit card statements. Do this at least for 3 months. You know, give yourself 3 months where you're every day you're coming back home, you're recording. This is what I've spent today. This is what has come in today. Then make a list of these irregular expenses like gifts, donations, car, home repairs. Let me tell you, a personal experience. Never go into a venture of restoring old cars. Yeah, your monthly expense ends up being rent, then car repairs, then everything else. So there are certain things that you can only discover the irregularities if you start writing down those expenses. Because for me, it was a discovery, you know, like every other month I'm spending money on this car, you know, either it's oil change, it's a new spare that I need to add in. So at the end of the day, I started looking at it and asking myself, surely every other month, if I'm going to spend like this on this car, is it worth staying with it? Of course, I later on had to sell it. Okay. Then your total expenses at the end of the month will give you a sort of insight in terms of how much are you actually setting aside and how much are you spending. And if once you do that for 3 months, those patterns that I'm talking about will help you start making changes as far as your financials are concerned. And especially during this environment, it's very critical to know where your money is going and where it's not going. Now, in terms of the monthly, how you prepare that budget, I'll just give an example. So for example, for income, you'll want to book it like this. So either the upper bit is just giving typically what would be the salary ranges, but again, you can ignore. And then below there now, the most critical thing is the bit on your other sources of income. So you have source one, source two, source three. Now, income will be a discussion of a later day, but at least they say you cannot be wealthy surviving on one income alone. So you need to be able to diversify your income. So apart from either your job that you're currently doing, what else are you doing to try and generate income? There's a lot of ideas that are flying around, that small cup lot you had, can you start planting some, onions? Or can you start picking up, odd jobs online, doing editorial work, so that you can start complementing income. And again, this there's no better time than this pandemic, because a lot of us have discovered the need to actually complement your income, because either you're on a pay cut, you already have a notice of redundancy, and you're trying to figure out, or you're in that moment of I wish, which is a moment that most of us has been in this pandemic period, where you wish that things were different. You wish you had saved, you wish you had started that project that you've always wanted to, but you've been putting it off. At least right now it should have been your source of income. So I think the time of regret is over. We just need to go back and ask ourselves now, we are here, what can we do? So complement your income, look for other things that can be able to bring money. Even that 5,000 shillings a month, that is still income. Don't ignore it. Don't say that this is too small. How can I do all this job just for 5,000 a month? So as you start building those other sources of income, you realize that you'll be growing your income portfolio. And of course, also booking in there's what you call fixed expenses. There are those expenses that every other month will have to go out. So you have things like rent, things like car payments, insurance, utilities like electricity and gas, telecommunications, childcare for those who have children to take care of. So once you book in, these are your fixed expenses. So every other month this money will have to go out. Okay. And then you have your variable expenses. Now, variable expenses are things that are not fixed, but during that month, for example, you found yourself, having to visit a friend, therefore you had to buy something. Yeah. I've been taught that you don't go to somebody's house empty-handed. So nowadays, there's a budget for visiting people, ensuring that we at least go with some bread, some milk, and something. So for those who go to other people's homes, especially men, we know ourselves. Please start buying something and going to visit friends with goodies. Don't just walk in and eat their food and leave. Then there is, of course, variable things such that you want to buy shoes during the month. So it would be good to look at what your variable expenses are. And especially this is where we tend to lose a lot of money, because if you don't track, you'll find yourself, you look at your bank account, you see there's some 30K, you say, okay, fine. I'm here in, what do they call this store in Two Rivers for clothes? So you're in that store and you're like, I have 30K. Why I should pick at least 2 pairs of shoes? And you go back home and you're like, things are okay. And then an emergency hits you. You're like, you wish you had not bought those shoes, or you start selling the shoes. So you have to be very careful, because then these variable expenses are the most trickiest and the most dangerous bits of our expenses, because if you are not planning very well for them, you will end up spending all your money in this thing. Then of course, once you've booked your income and your expenses, you'll be able to start understanding your surplus or deficit. So in most cases, the prayer is always you have a surplus and not a deficit. A deficit means you're just living on God's grace, which should not be, especially if you're a young professional. At least the assumption is that you understand about savings. All you are doing is complementing that knowledge to make you prepare well for any emergencies that come into your life. Now, in terms of managing costs, so I put in some few things that I think can help all of us in terms of managing our costs. So we just go through them quickly. Now, I have these 5 categories of savers that I always talk about. One is a premium saver, which means you have complementary income on top of your pay, and therefore on any average a month, as much as we say, save at least 40% of your save at least 20% of your salary at the end of the month. Somebody with complementary income, you'll find that they're saving more. So I call them premium savers, because you see they have different sources of income. The startup savers are people ideally who are depending on one source of income. At least they've managed to put that little 10% or even 20% aside every other month into some form of emergency fund. Then the space slip to space slip, and majority of the Kenyan population live on this paycheck to paycheck, where money comes in at the end of the month, you have nothing. Your expenses just consume everything. As you wait for the next paycheck. Then, of course, there's a bit of difference from payslip to payslip to hand to mouth, because hand to mouth means on a day-to-day, you're just, you're like mtu wa mjengo, where unapatiwa ka 500 bob that day, it's issues. You wake up again tomorrow to go and hustle for it. Then, of course, there's negative savers. It looks like an oxymoron, negative and savers of the same statement. But yeah, the people who at the end of the month are always on negative. And in most cases, it's because you're paying debt. Therefore, you can't even take care of your other expenses, which means either you have to borrow or to ask a friend to support you. Now, what are those areas that we can start saving on? So the first thing is checking your bills. So you need to start checking your bills. Check your electricity, check your water bill, check your phone bill. How much are you using to just make calls? And ask yourself, are these actually calls that are very important, or I'm just on 2-hour calls, just speaking to a friend and, reminiscing the old days instead of connecting to your internet and making a WhatsApp call. So what are those type of bills? So check them clearly. As I said, once you start doing your budgeting and start understanding what is consuming your money, then negotiate better plans. So for example, if it is banking fees that you feel you're being charged, or telephone or cell phone, or look for less cheaper plans. I see nowadays with Safaricom, you can get even a postpaid plan for 1,000 shillings. So that helps you, sort of manage your expenses because it controls, this month I only have 1,000 to spend on calls. And therefore, Kiisha, that's it. Therefore, even as you make calls, you ask yourself, is this a call that I need to make, or can I just, connect on Zoom or whatever to be able to speak to this person? Review your food costs, groceries, takeout. I just find it interesting. When I go to visit my cousin every other time, you'll see they're seated and they're saying, what are we ordering in today? And I'm like, guys, are we ordering in every day? Are you guys ordering in every day? And you see, sometimes you don't know or don't realize that it's consuming until the end of the month, when you start looking at your bills again and you see a whole row of, this week we ate from KFC twice and chicken in once. The other week we were, habeshaing something, and you ask yourself, if I just opted to cooking food, at least even if it means reducing my takeouts to once a week, what will that impact in terms of my savings? So the reason about budgeting and tracking those expenses is important, because then you start understanding these bits of your income that tends to just fly out into things that are good to have, especially during this time. Buying lunch, for example, you go to the office and you're still going to buy lunch. If you look at the cost of lunch per day on an average Nairobi job is anything from 200 to 300 shillings. Imagine if you calculate that in five days, you've spent what, 1,500, and that's just food alone. In a month, that translates to 6,000 shillings. So imagine if for 6,000 shillings you bought the ingredients to make the food at home and carry it to work. Imagine how much cost saving, because even 6,000 is a lot of money to just buy food and make it yourself at home. So looking at those things, in detail, one by one, will start helping you understand what are the areas that you can save your money. Then also consider whether you need to own a car at this particular time. You're spending fuel, you have to go and repair it, it's breaking down, you have to buy a spare part. You really need it right now? Do you consider whether you need to own a home right now in this environment? Taking a mortgage is something that you have to rethink and look at your financials. Or buying the latest high-tech gadget. I hear the latest iPhone is about to come up, or Samsung, whichever it is. But there are those people who, for them, they've already pre-ordered. Uh, each of those phones costs you like 150,000 to 200,000 shillings. Is there a need right now to buy the latest high-tech gadget? Is that money that you can set aside for any eventualities? So as you check your bills, spot the mistakes and overcharges, pay less in late fees, interest and penalties, and get errors corrected before it's too late. And talking about errors, be very careful with your Kenya Power bills, because I've seen people who have bills of 119,000 per month uh, for a household of only two people. So I'm wondering what they do. In most cases, I tell them wanachemshanga kichwa mbuzi every other day for them to hit a bill of 119,000. Then we have, sorry, seems like I have a problem there. Sorry. So then quickly, in terms of banking costs, we'll share this slide so you'll go through them. These are just a few things that you can start looking at in terms of managing your costs in this environment. What are you paying for monthly service charges? How much are you paying for ATM fees, for example? With the mobile apps here with us, why do you still have to go to the ATM to incur cost? Can you save by doing more banking online? For sure. So how can you get yourself more to the online banking side? Can you reduce your fees by keeping a minimum balance, or at the same time, can you reduce the amount of withdrawals you have to do, for example, to M-Pesa? Because the one thing that you discover is we instead of withdrawing in bulk, we keep withdrawing one after the other. And if a bank is charging you 35 shillings, for example, for an M-Pesa withdrawal, imagine if you did, give or take, 100 transactions on M-Pesa that month. Unconsciously, that's around 3,500 shillings that you've spent that month on M-Pesa charges alone. Imagine if you just had bundled up and withdrawn all that money at once and just, figure out how to send it out easily without having to incur extra charges. So you have to rethink most of those things. And then bundling up services, for example, if you're into watching TV and having internet at the same time, do you need DSTV right now? So can you, go, for example, to Zuku, who bundle TV, internet, and calls at the same time into one bundle? Because now imagine you have internet from Safaricom, you have DSTV TV because you need to watch DSTV. Your kids want Zuku, so you also have a Kazuku there. Can you bundle all these things and save from there? So remembering combining these services enables you to save a certain amount of money that can then go into your emergency fund, and then save on food. Some other thing that keeps demanding money from us, eat breakfast at home. You don't need to go to Java in the morning to have breakfast, and yet you could have done it at home. Bring your lunch, drinks, snacks, and coffee to the office, and reduce on that cost. Veg out. I know watu wa nyama choma na bia hapa wataniua, but once in a while, veg out on low-cost meatless meals at least once a week. That enables you to save, and it's also good for your health. Cook one big dish over the weekend and freeze, and then what you do is just over the week unatoa kidogo kidogo as you eat. That will also help save a lot, especially for bachelors. Then shop with a buddy at discount supermarkets, split the quantities, set a budget, and of course, discipline is very key. Question of, do you need a car at this time? And even before, do you really need a car? If you add up the real cost of ownership, gas, insurance, depreciation, interest, and maintenance, let me tell you, you'll be surprised that actually cars are a major liability, unless it's for business that is generating income. Otherwise, it's just a leisure car that you have to drive from here to work, and let me go and see some friend, and you're rocking in a new BMW, for example. Really doesn't make sense in this environment. And again, I always tell people, especially when it comes to this business of big ticket items, don't have peer pressure. At the end of the day, when things are thick, those are the friends who will be the first ones to run away. So if you can stick to your budget and understand what you can afford, and what you're putting aside for a better future for yourself, there are certain things that you start saying, why do I need it? And deep down, you find that You're buying a car either to piss off your ex, that, you know, I'm progressing in life. You want to show off to your clique of friends. If you go back to those reasons why you want to buy something and have a, I call it having a meeting with yourself, you realize there are certain costs that you don't need to incur because they're not part of benefiting you. They're just part of trying to prove a point to group of people. And in this world, why do you need to prove a point to anybody? Can you afford it? That's the next question. You know, so try it out. Put your monthly cost of owning a home, that is the mortgage, taxes, maintenance, etc., and then lump that into your savings account. See whether it can withstand. Can you afford to live on what's left after you've already lumped that thing? And if could you afford higher costs for taxes or insurance? For example, your mortgage or your car. Once you do that experiment, then you should be able to understand whether it makes sense to buy that car, especially for the people who end up in negatives, because they're either paying a mortgage, they're driving a car that is consuming in terms of, again, payouts in loans. Once you calculate that and you lump it up on savings before you even buy the thing, you should be able to see, am I actually going to live better or I'm going to live worse? Now, when owning a home doesn't make sense, one is when you travel very frequently, so you're never around. If you have a very low down payment, or when your income covers only mortgage payments and taxes, which means you don't have anything left for you to even pay off any other thing. So sometimes it's critical to ask yourself those things and don't get yourself into unnecessary expenses. Then there's something called the latte factor, and they say we've all got a latte factor regardless of our income level. You know, you have designer coffees. You want to walk into the office with a cup that is written Starbucks or Java, you know, so that there's a statement that you put out there, you know, mimi si wa kawaida, mimi ndio yule msee. You have lunches in restaurants, you know, you are at cafe. Today I ate at that cafe. You know, it's very important to highlight that. You know, you have impulse buys. You know, the latest phone comes up, somebody brags at you and tells you, you know, I got the latest phone. It's really nice. The camera quality is good. And you're like, by the way, I need to get it boom tomorrow. You're running your credit card. And then you have you can fill that blank in terms of what was your latest, greatest latte factor. In terms of what you just went out and bought as part of the latte factor. Was it this designer coffee, or was this restaurant that you are peer pressured into going to, and you find yourself paying a bill of 30,000 shillings just because you needed to be there? So ask yourself, when does a want that you want become a need, and what motivates you to buy it? Is it advertising? Is it friends? Is it trendy styles? Is it a rough day? Does that urge to buy die the next day? And if it does, does your purchase make you happier? Or what needs are now collecting dust in your house? Because there are those things that we've ended up purchasing. You'll come to somebody's house, you'll figure out they're all there. This one I always attack ladies on, telling them, you know, you'll buy a shoe. You know, there's this thing of every month you have 3 or 4 pairs of shoes you have to buy. Out of those 4 pairs, you'll only wear one. The other 3 will be kept in a shelf somewhere, never to be worn. But you know, they need to be there. Don't touch them. They're good. They're good. Just good to be seen. So what can you learn to live without? It's a very important lesson to ask yourself. Now, in terms of impulse buying, we need to avoid unnecessary trips to stores and shopping malls, and online buying sites. Leave credit cards at home and use your debit card or cash instead. So walk out with cash. I have a friend who actually tells me he never, when he's going shopping, he budgets, he withdraws the amount of cash he needs for that budget, and that's what he walks into the supermarket with. He has no cards with him. So he knows by the time I walk out of this supermarket, the only much I can spend is this amount of money. So he knows I have to strictly remain on there, or I have to remove something else to put something else into the basket. So he never walks in out of the house with his cards. Then you have to use cash to pay for your purchases, and carry only cash you're willing to spend, as I say. Reduce available credit on your credit card so that you if you can get it even at low as 50,000, 100,000, it is fine. So that, you don't have the urge to keep running your card for expenses that are unnecessary. Then sometimes sleep on it and see what you still want it the next day. There are those things where you watch a movie and you're like, hey, I need to get that thing. You need to get that thing. Like, I need to plan, you wake up in the morning and like, why was I even thinking? What am I going to do with that thing? So sometimes sleeping over it makes a bit of sense. Now, in terms of credit and debt management, and as I said, today we're just having a conversation, learning some of those things that are consuming our money, and how can we try and track back on that and be able to at least put money aside for savings. Now, in terms of credit cards, of course, they offer you convenience. They charge a loan at the end of the day, with interest unless you pay in full, of course, by the due date. The charges add up very quickly. So sometimes you can end up being in arrears for 3 months because you're just spending. So sometimes choose the card with the features that you want, with the lowest cost. Limit the number of cards you hold. Keep your credit limit very low. And sometimes read your monthly statement. As I said, booking it into a book and writing it down, you'll be able to see what your variable expenses are and what are really consuming and what you can avoid. Then avoid cash advances except for emergencies. Okay, I have a credit card. I've never actually dared to go into that thing because the interest they charge you because you went and withdrew money from your credit card on an ATM is ridiculous. So you need to be very careful, especially if you own a credit card. If you find yourself having a problem, as I say, take that card to a friend, pray over it, and then ask them to cut it using a scissors. Very important, because credit cards are a monster if you're not very careful. Now, in terms of how can you control credit, one, pay the balance in full each month, please. Kama uko na deni, lipa. Do not say, I'll pay the other month when that other money comes in. So this month, let me enjoy. Please, lipa madeni. Let me tell you the level of good sleep you have because you don't owe anybody any money. Let me tell you, sleep like you're, I don't know, lack of a better word, Jerusalem or something. Because you don't owe anybody any money. So any chance to pay off a debt that you had, please pay it off. It's one less negative on your income statement. If you can't pay it in full, pay as much as you can. So you'll find that we have loans and you've stretched out your loan. So for example, you're taking a mortgage for 25 years. Now, sometimes, you go and you're like, with my salary of 200,000 or 100,000, how much can I pay to this thing? So, okay, fine, I can afford a house that, the mortgage is around 65, 75,000. Sorry, I don't know. That's just me speaking. So I don't think there's a mortgage for 75,000. So by the time you calculate a mortgage, you realize you're paying either close to 50 to 60% of the cost of, or sometimes 100% in terms of interest by the end of your 25 years. So you can imagine if you're just paying out, you'll have paid the bank twice what you've borrowed. Now imagine if every other month, if money comes in, you're saying, yes, I know I'm supposed to pay 75,000, but I'll be paying off 150,000 every other month. Now, that means that you will be able to, and you remember it's on reducing balance. So if you're going to pay it for 25 years, you'll end up paying the loan for in 10 years. That would have reduced a very big outlay that would have gone out. So if you can, and you have to pay it every other month, pay as much as you can. Don't restrict yourself that, they are only asking for this money, so I'll pay this alone. Then don't make only the minimum payment, as I talked about. If you always carry a balance, get a lower rate card. Transfer the balance to a line of credit with a lower rate. Yeah. So, for example, when the pandemic happened and people had to restructure loans, I remember my circle saying, if you have several loans out there, we can help you. Please combine them into one, and we're willing to extend you 5 times your savings in the circle, which is a good thing. And if anybody took that opportunity, I think it was better, because if you have a loan in 2 other banks and the circle as well, if you combine them at a circle rate of around 12%, it helps you, at least gives you a bit of relief. Then pay a few days before the due date, just to keep your appetite to not pay out of the way. Those are the types of loan pays. And one of the one I wanted to talk about is these payday loans. You know, there are people who have this habit of you're borrowing money and paying it back. So you know your money is coming in form of a salary, 100,000, for example. You go to the bank and say, hey, my salary is coming in, please give me the 100,000 in advance. What you don't realize is that now you've, on top of the other taxes and everything and deductions that will happen to your pay, now that 100K will also include this loan that you've taken from the bank, which the security is your salary. At the end of the day, are you able to avoid such things and just plan yourself? That's why we were talking about budgeting and just planning for your expenses, so that you're not in these situations where you are at zero and you have to go and borrow from the bank, with security being the salary that you are going to get that month. It's very dangerous. It's a very dangerous move. And I've seen a lot of guys do this a lot in most firms, where you're constantly on, give me a salary advance, give me my salary advance. So tips for loans: shop around. Number one, compare interest rate. Don't accept your first offer. Keep within your budget. So borrow only what you can afford to pay back in a realistic time. Okay, guys. Then pay back more, as I said, and pay more often, because then it means you're reducing your balance. In terms of credit scoring and reporting, this is very critical, especially for people who have ended up being, if it's for nothing, at least for you to check whether you're being swindled somewhere. I've seen or heard of people who ended up going to try and borrow a loan from the bank, and they were told, hey, you need to pay off your, Tala loan or Equity Bank loan. And in your mind, you're like, I don't have an Equity Bank account, or do I have a Tala account? Then you go to your credit reporting, you see there's a loan for Tala of what amount of money. So you go and call Tala and they tell you, yes, you owe us a loan. You registered an account with us and stuff like that. So the good thing with credit reporting is that you're able to start seeing some of these things, where you have this part on, it indicates it helps you understand the first your scoring to alert you whether you're okay or not, depending on how you've been paying your debt. But it's also a good way to check for identity theft, where if somebody has gone and is using your ID number to borrow loans from phones and all that, you'll be able to see it there. It's a bit scary where you receive a call from Equity Bank that you need to pay back your loan, and you're like, I am not a member of Equity, I've never borrowed a loan with you. But yes, somebody went and registered, and you talk about protecting yourself on the other side. So it's very critical to understand, how do you protect yourself, because these things are real and people are being swindled money out here. The danger signals, for example, do you use your credit as necessity instead of convenience? Yeah. So every day you're just swiping and just swiping, very dangerous. Do you use credit or cash advances for your daily living expenses? Yeah. So you're going to take a loan to repair your car. Like, sure, you can do that. You're missing payments or due dates. That's, again, a danger signal. You're staying near the credit limit on most of your credit cards. So if your credit limit is 100K, every other month you're nearly at 100K. Very dangerous. Borrow from one card to pay another. Very dangerous. So it's like, I would call it a personal Ponzi scheme. You're borrowing from here to pay here, then this, you'll borrow and then pay the other side. Transferring balances every few months just before the introductory offer expires. Be very careful. Those are danger signals. In terms of how can you take control, use your savings to pay off balances. If you have a saving right now, if you can use it to clear off any loan that you have, it's very important. I did that for myself when this pandemic kicked in, and I was like, I had a small loan, and I was like, if I defer this loan, the bank is still telling me they will charge, the interest will continue accruing, and at the end of the 3 months that they've given you, they will lump it up again. So I was like, is there a need? Actually, it's like, I'm deferring penalty. So I was like, it is fine. I'll just clear that loan and have that peaceful sleep at night. Pay down your high interest rate debts fast, quickly. Switch to less expensive credit cards if you have to have one. Call creditors to negotiate lower interest rates, and then start automatic online billing payments to stay on schedule. So put standing orders such that when money kicks in, the first thing that goes out is your money that you owe. Leave your credit card at home. We've spoken about it. Then avoid buy now, pay later offers. where you're told, I don't know, you're my friend. You take the phone at the end of the month. Those are loan shark kind of syndromes. You've been told, just take the car, start paying pole pole. How much do you have? 20,000. It's fine. You take it, and then you'll pay pole pole. Be very careful on such offers. So the critical debt management options, this is for businesses right now. One is credit counseling. You can create a personal debt management program. It's often based on consolidation of loans. So you can visit a credit counselor to, run you through. You tell them, I have all these debts. What's your proposal? There's also consumer proposals, especially for businesses, where you do a voluntary offer to lenders through a licensed insolvency trustee. And this is just now when you've hit a point where you have to sort out your debt fully and go back, reset. Yeah. Sometimes there's no need of clinging to a business where you're losing money. If you can, consolidate and have a insolvency trustee to help you through the process, or again, declaring bankruptcy where now a trustee takes over your assets to cancel debts. And a good example is NACMAT, the process that they've had to go through, a trustee coming in and then taking the assets and helping distribute them to cancel all their debts. So as we head towards the end now, how do you then save and invest? Remember, now we've spoken about budgeting, critical to understand the items. We've talked about managing those costs on a month-to-month basis. We've talked about debt management. Now, if you have loans, what can you do? And credit, what can you do? Now, at the end of the day, you've put money aside. How do you then save and invest? So, why save for the future? One, to feel more secure and in control. Two, to get prepared for emergency. Corona, nobody knew it's coming. Then you lost your job and everything. Imagine if you had zero right now. It would have been rough. I'm sure there are people who've had to go through it, unfortunately. As painful as it is, it's a lesson that the importance of, when things are good, put money aside because you prepare for such emergencies. And then spend with less guilt or fear. That's the reason number 3, because you've saved, you're spending with less guilt. You're like, I planned. Sorry, that's not Corona, so don't start cleaning your cameras. Spending with less guilt or fear, which means if you had planned to buy a phone, you've set money aside, you've been saving every other month. When the time reaches for it, you're spending with less guilt. Like, I wish I'd, it's because you had a goal and you saved towards it. Just reduce stress and conflict. Conflict being you keep borrowing from friends and you have to pay them back. I have this rule that I don't lend money to friends that I'm not willing to lose. Like if I give you 10,000 and you tell me you're going to pay back, I've already written it off. That is if I'm willing to write it off. Otherwise, I would tell you I just don't have money. Or I tell you have this policy, I don't lend to friends because I've had my share of pain lending to friends. So I came up with a new principle, I don't lend with friends. But recently I was told we need to change that thing, that you need to lend to friends that you can beat. So it's easier. Yeah. So only focus on lending to friends that you can thoroughly beat if they don't pay you back. Reason number 5, afford major purchases that you're saving. You want to buy a kaburoti so that you can be able to build. So you are saving, putting it aside, then build. So you're saving to afford those major purchases, or paying off debt and avoiding new debt. So you've saved, and if there's debt, you use it to save. And then, of course, retire comfortably. It's very important where you saving to be able to so you'll be able to retire comfortably. Then the quicker question now is, out of the 8 reasons, why are you, the people who've joined us online, why are you saving? And it's always say that to get your expenses to a total of 60% of your income and leave at least 40% for saving. Then out of that 40%, you allocate 10% for fun or spontaneous expenses, 10% for retirement, 10% towards the emergency fund, and 10% for unexpected expenses. So at least, I always say, have up to 6 months of your salary saved at any one given point in time, such that if Corona happened, at least with 6 months saved up, you can easily, replan your life and know where you can put in money, where you cannot put in money. But the point is, you're able to afford to at least survive for the next few months as you figure out what are the next steps. And remember, the emergency fund does not mean if, for example, everything goes haywire and you have to reset, you have to quickly think about, what cost can I, whatever. So if you lost your job, for example, and you had an emergency fund, it does not mean, let me continue my lifestyle as it is. Yeah. You have to, quickly reset and go back to low expenses so that at least even with the 6 months, if anything doesn't change, you can survive for 12 months easily, because we'll have like gone half in terms of your expenses per month. Then in terms of the provider in terms of savings and investing, the reason not to save is because I don't make enough money. So I don't have money to save. I'm just earning 20,000 shillings. How can I save? There's nothing that I can save at the end of the day. There is something you can save. If you just follow the steps we've talked about, proper budgeting, looking at things that you can postpone, things that you can remove, you can survive without. At the end of the day, you can always have something to save. If you move to that cheaper house, be able to just allow you some small money that you can set aside. We always have money to save. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, so I'm going to enjoy myself now. I remember this, some friend telling me some time back, but why are you saving money? You don't even know what tomorrow. So imagine if you die today, and you had saved everything, you will come and then all of a sudden you die. You'll not enjoy that money. But I'm like, you don't save, you don't live knowing you'll die tomorrow. What happens if you don't die and you live? Yeah, do you ever consider that option? So sometimes, these statements keep running in our minds that, what am I saving for? I might not even live past this thing, so I need to spend and YOLO and all those things. Then I don't know what to do with the money I might save. It's too complicated. That's why we talk about the need of a financial advisor. Try tying up my money in savings reduces my options. It doesn't. It actually expands your options. I save so little that it doesn't make any difference. You start small. Let me tell you. 10 or so years ago, I started Circle Savings. I remember it was so small. I used to give like 1,000 bob every other month. And we'll learn about it in the second step there, the power of compounding. So you start with 1,000, next month 2,000, like that. At the end of the year, you're done 12,000. You get a Casalo increment. You say, okay, fine, I'll push this now from 1,000 to 5,000 every month. Let me tell you, after 7 years, you look at your Circle Savings and you're like, is this me? Is this me who has saved all this money? But you see, if you kept focusing on, wait, it's the second month you're 2K, you're like, you see, haitafika mahali, wacha tu nitoe nikule. That's the biggest destructive self-talk that most people have with themselves, that when you're starting off, it looks so little. But the day you'll have done this thing consistently over 10 years, you'll be surprised on what you'll have been able to achieve individually. So it's critical to have that discipline and determination that, hey, this is my target, this is where we need to be. And sometimes financial goals help you do that, so that you're saving, you're saving for this thing. So pole, you're growing that. The other reason not to save is I'll be earning more and in future I'll start saving there. And this happens a lot, especially for young professionals just joining the work environment. I went through this. Unfortunately, some of these things I can relate to because I've lived through them. And I remember earning 40,000 shillings, and I was like, let me enjoy money for this 1 year. Then from next year, I will start saving. Yeah. So you'll be like, this year, my first pay, whatever, I'll just be enjoying. Then you reach the next year, you get a pay increment. You're like, they've just added my pay. Okay, fine. Let me just enjoy this year again. Then next year, we'll start saving. So you find yourself, the problem, the challenge of income elasticity. So you move from chapatia kibanda to chapatia restaurant. Okay, you used to buy mandazis in the morning through your mama mandazi pale kwa stall. Sai una move, unasema mimi siwezi kula mandazi ya kutoka hapo, nimepata ka increment. Unaanza kununua mandazi Naivas. Yeah? So you'll find that you're always just expanding instead of setting aside. Then I don't need to save because I'm expecting an inheritance. Big problem. Inheritance kwanza is another big monster. You can't, the same way we say you can't hope is not a strategy. The same thing, you can't say, I know I will get it. Inheritance cannot be a strategy for saving at all. Then I can always sell my things if I need more money. Yes, you can. However, at what price point? So today, you've bought an asset like a car. Of course, they always say, once you get a Mercedes off the showroom, you've lost up to 25% of its value instantly when those tires just hit out of the showroom. So you can imagine if you're going to sell that car, you're already 25% down on day one. So yes, you can, but at what price point? You'll have lost money. So steps to saving: set up an emergency fund. Very critical right now. Step. If you've not, please talk to Vasili. Start. Even if it is that 1,000, 1,500 you're putting aside, put it aside. So talk to them. They'll tell you all the possible options. Pay yourself first. What do I mean? Savings is a point of paying yourself first. Before you even pay other people expenses, whatever, save, pay, jilipe. It's very critical. So if money comes in and you know you have a standing order, put it. Let that money go out to your savings account, to whatever it is, but let it go. Okay? Pay yourself first before you start paying other people. Make savings automatic by putting in those standing orders, and then grow your savings. Look for options that give you compounding of interest. Yeah. Because then, every other month, whatever you put in is added up and you earn interest out of it. And even as you're thinking about savings, look at risk and return. So they say the higher the return, the higher the risk. So you can start from something that is low risk, diversify to something that is medium, then something that is high. But don't, from the word go, take your money and put it in a high risk investment expecting a higher return. But remember, the higher the return, the higher the risk. The higher the risk in terms of you can lose all of it. Yeah. At this point, if you're starting savings, you play around the low risk level, you grow into medium, then you can eventually go into things that have higher risk. Now, and remember, it's diversification. It does not mean you have to put the saying that don't put all your eggs in one basket. So you can put a little bit in low risk investments, medium investments, and high risk, depending on your profile. And this is just a good illustration. If you have different investment horizons, you can play the conservative, you can play the moderate or aggressive. But my advice is always to have a little bit of each, because then conservative is something that, especially for emergency funds, this is the best, where it's high liquidity and it's safe. Good examples here: money markets, bank deposits, that is fixed deposit, treasury bills, and whatever. Those are your typical conservative options. Then you can look at moderate as well, where you have incremental income and capital preservation. These ones are things like stocks, shares, and all those things. They play around this. And then there's the aggressive, which you have an investment horizon of 10 years. Now, the mistake most people do is they mix these things. You invest in a 10-year, you invest as a conservative in an aggressive manner. So you keep putting your money in 10-year investments and with an investment objective of liquidity. There's no possible way. You can't invest in real estate and expect liquidity. It's not there. So sometimes it's very good to take a step back and look at this and understand where you are, so that you are not having stressful nights because you put your money in illiquid assets, because above 10 years, you're looking at capital appreciation and growth, not liquidity. So when COVID has happened, you're asking yourself, why did I invest? Yes, it's because you are a conservative investor who was having an aggressive approach in terms of the investment. So it's always good to seek a financial advisor so that they can put you in the right bucket. In most cases, for me, I would prefer somebody who explores all of them, but putting in what they know they can put there. So you have a bit of savings in MMF, you're exploring shares, and forex trading and all those things within here. Then you have your aggressive, you're buying some bit of real estate to a couple for something that you're about to do. So it's good to like diversify, because then at this point, as much as you know, in case of emergency, you're sorted. In case of growth, incremental income that can come into putting money into the liquidity, you're playing in that space. So you put in shares, 3 months, 4 months, you take them out, the earnings you put here, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, it's giving incremental income, but you have capital preservation. Then here, now you are looking at capital appreciation, which means if I invest in a plot right now for 100K, I know in the next 10 years, that plot will have moved from 100K to maybe 500 or 600K. And if I have to sell it, then I'm selling it at a higher price point. So again, there. So you're playing in the territory, but you know where you need to be. I would say, but the most place to start with is here. Yeah, you can't automatically start investing and you're here, you're aggressive, because here you can lose it all or you can gain it all. So you don't want to gamble with that. Then in terms of why save for the future, the first place to start with is questions to ask your financial advisor. As I said, you need to get a financial advisor. I always say, be very careful to understand who you're speaking to. Is it a financial advisor or a salesperson? A salesperson will take you to, you need to get this product. This is the best product in the market. It gives you the highest interest. It gives you, being informed my screen is not moving. Is it moving now? Hello?
Not yet.
Rose, is it moving?
No.
Just a second. I'll stop sharing and share again. Now?
Yes.
Okay. So understand what's the background of this financial advisor, the experience and their track record. Is their firm registered with any regulatory body? What can you do for me? Like, what can the financial advisor do for you? And as I said, they need to provide advice. That's why their names are financial advisors. Salespeople come and start telling you, wewe nunua money market. Hiyo hapana, iko na interest kidogo. We kuja nikupeleke, kuna kitu hapa niliona rafiki yangu amefanya, iko na pesa. Hiyo hata tukiweka, you know, that's how you get scammed. Advice means the person starts of all tries to understand and figure out with you your financial goals, because your financial goals are the ones that tell which investment or which route you're able to take. Salesperson will come and talk about the products instead of trying to help you understand what are your goals first before they can then move into your the product bit. So be very careful in terms of who you're handling. Is it a financial advisor or is it a salesperson? It's good to differentiate. Then what products do they sell? How do you get paid? How do you work with your clients? Then can you provide references? So it's very good to understand this thing, because a financial advisor is a very important person in your life. If you don't have one, look for one. And they're better than Vasili. So if you can, please get one that you can speak to, who can help you in terms of where can you put your money. You have 100K, where can you put it safely? Because then they will be able to run you through this thing, and you'll be able to then appreciate and say, oh, okay, fine, now I understand. Let me start here kidogo with 70K, then you can play my 30K around here. Then the three things you need to know. First is know yourself, your investment goals, your timeline, and your risk tolerance. We've looked at them here. Investment, risk, rate, risk exposure, liquidity, objective. Then know your investment. Is it right for you? This is where a lot of people, for lack of a better word, have premium tiers. Yeah. And it's not because they, in most cases, it's because they didn't know what they were getting themselves into. And defaults back to knowing your advisor, because if your advisor was a proper advisor, they would have painted that whole picture for you, and then you picked the right one. Because remember, if you find somebody who is aggressive, they're looking for commissions. They're not looking to advise you. So be very careful, because if you don't know your investment, you'll be investing in the wrong things. You lose your money and you start blaming everybody apart from yourself. You know, the way we blame everybody for the problems in our lives, but we are not in that equation of, you know, we are not part of the problem, it's everybody else. You're part of the problem because you didn't take time to know your investment and whether it was right for you. So in terms of financial goals, first is prioritize. You can't do everything. So decide what's important to you, choose one or more goals for your focus, write them down, and then check your progress. Yeah. Check every other month. Have I saved? Am I closer to that goal that I wanted to have? And they have to be smarter goals, so which means you have to break them down into small steps. Now, as I always say, it's easier said than done, but it requires a lot of discipline to wake up every day and say, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut lunches down to once per week, save 20, for example, 20 shillings per week. That translates to 1,040 per year. I'm going to cut restaurant meals to just 2 per month. Okay. I'm going to switch to basic cable because these other things that are so many channels, I don't even watch them. I'll only switch to the one that has the few channels that I want. Work extra shifts a few days or a month for people who are there to earn some extra money. Total, you'll have saved something to the tune of 6,400 in 12 months. So you have to write those whatever down, and you keep evaluating. As I said, it looks easier said than done. It requires a lot of discipline that you're able to note these things down and then come back every other time. Let me assure you, you start doing this thing, you'll start having a lot of realizations about the things that are going wrong and you need to correct, and the things that are going right that you need to keep doing so that you're set for the future. As we close, how do you protect yourself? Avoid, there are a lot of things we do online and we keep clicking on things in our browsers and everything that can lead us into a very risky place. We have these get rich quick schemes that we find ourselves reading online. Oh, somebody tells you there's free, K-Gas is giving free gas. And surely you need to ask yourself, why would K-Gas be giving free gas? And at this time, and then why are they asking me to pay for the gas itself? Be very careful. There are ways you can spot scams. There are a lot of it. Indications are there. Sometimes just go with your instinct. Your instinct tells you this is wrong, it is wrong. So there's these signs of bogus job ads. So they offer considerable pay with few to no duties, provide payment of wages in cash. They contain no physical address, require you to open a new bank account or accept company checks to test a wire transfer. Please avoid. That's how the famous Hash Puppy was able to sort people out. Social media scams, fake posts, fake links, fake messages and phishing links, fake friend requests, fake money transfers. Please avoid those things. Yeah. Don't have an appetite to, you know, you have 1,000 today, you want to have it as 100,000 at the end of the year. With 1,000, somebody tells you I can make it 100,000 a year, and you're like, wow, tell me how to go about it. There's nothing like that. There's no get rich scheme in this. Get rich quick scheme that is legit in this world. You have to work. You have to put time. You have to be patient, and you have to understand how investment works. Stop running into this thing of somebody tells you, oh, by the come here, I'll give you 30%, come here, I'll give you 40%. Be very wary. If you don't understand it, don't go for it. Invest in things that you yourself understand at the end of the day. Don't invest on things that you don't understand. Then, limit the number of credit cards you hold. Check your credit report, as I said. Make sure websites are secure before you're transmitting personal information, especially for those people who share their cards and everything online. Delete emails that ask for personal information. Keep your computer firewalls and spyware up to date. Antiviruses na nini. This is where people get scammed a lot. Keep your computer password safe. Don't give telemarketers personal information. This is where a lot of people have lost money on M-Pesa, where somebody calls you, tells you, oh, we are from Safaricom. You look, Truecaller is telling you the number is registered at Safaricom. Truecaller is the worst place to ever look for the record. Then they start asking you for some personal information. You just voluntarily give them. Save paper bank records for at least a year. Be skeptical. If an offer sounds too good to be true, it is. Okay? So if it's too good to be true, it is. And the most critical thing about all this is, the one thing I've come to realize is don't share information where you don't need to. So for example, what I do when I go into buildings where you're requested to enter your IDs and whatever, I give the wrong ones. So like my phone number, I add the last 3 digits are always wrong. My ID number, the last, again, 3 digits is always wrong. So you'll go and search, you'll get it's a whole different guy, because I've seen now people using that thing to scam others on mobile phones. So you find your ID has been used to register, or you find your phone number has been used to be registered for a loan somewhere else. So sometimes where you don't feel safe, don't just share your information, or politely decline, because that's how the information then gets into the wrong hands. So in summary, as we close this thing, I'm seeing it's 11:11. Keep track of your income and your expenses in a budget. So we've talked about it. Save money by reviewing your bills and reducing your latte factor. Yeah, Java caps and whatever. We've talked about it. Start reducing. Shop around for the best bank accounts, credit cards, and service plans. Pay yourself fast with automatic savings. Build an emergency fund equal to should be equal to 3 to 6 months of your income. Pay all your debts on time and in full if possible. Set clear savings goals. Use registered savings plans, okay, to let your savings grow tax-free. So like money market funds, they normally only have 15% withholding, and that's a last tax. You don't have to remit anything else. So register yourself. If you get those ones that are tax-free, get yourself there, okay? Find a licensed financial advisor for long-term investment guidance, please. Not people who are running for commissions. Then secure your identity and avoid identity theft. I think that marks the end of the conversation this morning. I'll open it up in case there are any questions that we can then address. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mainye, for sharing that presentation with us. In case any of us has a question, please feel free to type it and then we shall address it. But before that, I wanted to ask Daniel, when you leave your ID or your telephone number now when you're entering buildings,
yes,
and you use the wrong telephone number, what happens if something happens and they have to look for you?
Yeah, there's always that risk. That's why I was saying, evaluate which type of building that they're asking for. So for example, if you go to Safaricom building, of course they have all those measures. I feel safer because then it's a properly managed security function. But you find yourself in some dodgy buildings in town, there's no way I'm going to leave my ID there. You can even find yourself in some setup because of leaving your personal information. So there are certain buildings that once you evaluate it, you can actually tell yourself, this is a very dodgy building. Why would I be leaving my personal information? A guard who comes with a book, it's so torn, they don't even check to see whether, they don't even ask you for the ID so that they can write the right information. They're like, andika ID namba yako hapa, andika simu, sign na uende. Be very wary, because those are the books that they go transfer to some scam guy, and then they start registering your ID numbers and services that you never enlisted in, taking money. Another one is even M-Pesa shops. So remember, not all M-Pesa shops are good. There are those that actually sell those details or data to other guys. So if you want to withdraw even from M-Pesa, be very careful. At most, just insist on doing M-Pesa withdrawals from your bank to your phone. Yeah. And if you have to get cash, if you have that, in most cases, use ATMs, because ATMs also have the options for withdrawing via M-Pesa. So if you can use them as much as possible, it will be good, because then your data is secure there. Because this thing, at the end of the day, your data just lying around everywhere is a very dangerous thing. So be very careful where you leave your data, because that can become a very big, messy thing later. And I've seen a lot of people lose money out of it.
Okay. But there is a question from Stella. What are some of the avenues to increase income streams with small capital or even with no capital?
I think with avenues to increase income streams with small capital, that for me is the aspect on compound interest. And for me, the first thing you can start with is savings. So that's, if you have small capital, where can you look for channels that give you compounded interest and money market, any type of savings that can give you that element of, compounded interest is a good way to start. Okay. Businesses are also another avenue. If you have small capital, you go for the safer sort of assured investment. It could be run an M-Pesa shop. Of course, again, business becomes tricky. It's a whole different topic, but we can handle it on a later date. Is how then you can run a safe business with small capital. What are those types? Looking at things like farming, which has become a big thing right now. Those are the small things that you're assured I can make some small money. I've seen people go into grocery businesses right now, a really booming business. You can start getting money out of it. Anything around food right now is making a lot of sense, because then, we're only reducing our spending into two important things, that is shelter and food. What else? Clothing right now, ulikuwa na nguo kitambo, hizo zimetosha. You don't need to buy any more clothes right now. So you're focusing on only two things: paying your rent and getting some food. So food becomes a critical thing right now, because then people are be able to spend. Now, or even with no capital, I have no clue which business you can start with no capital. I'm not sure. You have to have some form of capital, even 1,000 or 2,000 shillings, that's still capital. So I don't know which business you can start with no capital. Maybe online business where your capital is your intellectual. So either it is editorial work, shooting videos, but again, there's still capital in a way, because you need to have that machine and those cameras to shoot those videos. But at the end of the day, I don't think there's a business you can start with no capital, because there's always an element of capital, whether it is your intellectual itself, which means you're running some online form of business where you don't need to incur anything from the word go, or you need an asset like a laptop to actually do it. So that's part of, you have to raise money. So sometimes because you had it, you feel like there was no capital, but yeah, there was a bit of capital into it. So there are those that you can actually do it. The ones that come to mind very fast is the online businesses, where you can set up and do some kind of work, editing. If you have videography skills, you can get some consultancy around videography online, and people send you videos, you edit for them, send back. For me, I'm good at designing presentations. So one of the things that has been helped, especially in COVID environment, is people sending me research work, sending me presentations that they tell me, hey, spruce it up. And from there I tell them, okay, fine, I'll charge you 10,000 shillings. They pay me my 10,000 shillings. I do a good job. From there I get referrals, and it grows from there. So there are those that you can start based on the skills that you have. That's what I would call a no capital sort of thing. But then you have to slowly market yourself through friends and all that. That could be a good starting point.
All right. I don't know that there are any further questions.
I'm seeing there's Mike Arasa, Brian Muduya, Josephine,
yes,
Caroline Govi. Any question? Even the most sensitive ones, it's okay to ask, because saya kuna kuaibika.
But we shall share the presentation at the end of the day. By the end of the day, the recording of it. Also, I don't know, Mainye, you can share your contacts for anybody who might want to reach out to you.
Sure.
Okay. When are you doing the topic on how to start a business? Stella, we are scheduling that in the course of the next month, the next 3 months coming. So we shall share the webinar calendars starting from Monday for the next 1 month at least in advance so that you can plan yourself. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. I don't know whether there's anybody else with a question. Okay. And to add on to what Mainye was saying to Stella, I think you can also use whatever hobby you have. You can try and monetize the hobby. If it's making home decor, those do-it-yourselves, you can try and monetize. That's almost little capital most of the time, because it's a lot of stuff that you can collect from home and work with it, and then you can sell it. Because I think everybody now, people have stayed at home and they realize I need to spice up my house or something of the sort. So change decor and the like. So if you can try and find a very simple way of making the decor and price it nicely, I think you're on to a good capital venture, I would call it that. Yeah. I don't think there are any more questions. Yes, asanteni sana. So we shall share the calendar at the end of on Monday to all those who have subscribed to the webinars. For those who are new, we have trainings every week, on Saturdays mostly, between 10 a.m., 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. So anytime that we can, we learn different things. There is the past webinars that we've had for the last 3 months. We'll share the link on the YouTube so that you can be able to follow them up. Then there will be the coming ones now. The calendar will be on our website. You can log in and sign up for them. So asanteni sana, and Daniel, thank you very much.
Welcome. Always a pleasure.
Yes, asante sana. Thank you.
Thank you, and have a nice rest of the weekend, guys.
Thank you so much.